The Hulk is the strongest there is, or so he likes to think, and he has undoubtedly carried out some amazing feats of strength over the years. Whether it was acts of heavy lifting or the damage caused by his super strong punches, the big green guy is definitely hard to match in that department. In this video, we'll take you through some of the Hulk's most insane feats of strength. Enjoy! Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It's the best way of keeping up to date with all of CBR's great new videos. Throwing a tank. Let's start with a couple of the Hulk's best feats of strength from the movies, and the first of which comes from the 2003 Hulk movie, in which Eric Bana portrayed the titular character. After the Hulk escaped from a military facility, the military pursued him into the California desert and a fight ensued. A lot of tanks were present, one of which in particular took the full force of the Hulk's raid. After flipping it onto its roof, the Hulk grabbed its cannon, spun it around a couple times, and then threw the massive thing several hundred meters into the desert's sandy hills.
So, this all seems horrible.
One-punching a Leviathan. In 2012, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Mark Ruffalo's version of the Hulk pulled off an arguably more impressive feat of strength than that of Eric Bana's. As the Chitauri were invading Earth through a portal above New York City, their enormous Leviathans, known colloquially amongst fans as space whales, began to join the fight. When Iron Man enticed one into the path of the Avengers, Bruce Banner announced to Captain America that he was always angry, and proceeded to immediately transform into the Hulk, at which point he killed the gigantic armored beast with a single incredibly powerful punch.
Is that all you've got?
Punching through Abomination's face. In the comics, the Abomination is one of Hulk's most long-standing foes, and at his base level at least, he's every bit as strong and durable as the big green hero, if not more so before Hulk's rage takes him beyond that level. And that makes this feat incredibly impressive. After taking a beating at the hands of the evil brute, Hulk got angry when Abomination mentioned killing Betty Ross, and his response was to punch so hard that it went straight through the villain's ugly face.
Oh, that's funny. You're still so funny, though, man.
Moving the Blob. In this entry, the villainous Blob is said to be immovable, and the mutant is generally considered to be an X-Men villain. His immovability is achieved by the Blob altering his own personal monodirectional gravity field beneath himself, which is seen here in one of Marvel's fanfare comics. During this instance, the obese bad guy was boasting about his greatness, while the Hulk punched him so hard that he went flying backwards, something previously thought impossible. And equally as impressive, the Hulk had supposedly stopped the theoretically unstoppable Juggernaut at the very same time. But given that the Green Brute's power was amped by Apocalypse at the time, the Juggernaut feat doesn't get its own place on this list. Lifting a castle. On more than one occasion, the Hulk has lifted very massive things, which in and of itself is impressive. But in one of his self-titled comic book issues, the Hulk achieved something even more impressive while fighting one of Iron Man's enemies, the Mandarin. In this instance, the Mandarin was attempting to enslave the Hulk, and for a while he was successful. But when the device that he was using to control the Green Goliath fell off, the Hulk was angry. Very angry. And that's when the Hulk lifted a corner of the Mandarin's castle off the ground and completely toppled the massive building over, causing it to crumble into pieces. Of course, the Hulk then just proceeded to walk off into the sunrise like it was no big deal. Throwing the soul gem to a planet's core. In another Hulk comic book example, while he was on the ancient planet Kai, the Hulk got his hands on the Soul Gem, which of course is the comic book version of the Soul Stone that we all saw Thanos travel to Vormir to obtain in Avengers Infinity War. However, in regards to the Soul Gem, Hulk threw it deep below the planet's surface, which in and of itself is pretty impressive given the density of the material. But when you consider that he actually threw it through the planet, meaning from surface to core, past miles and miles of solid rock, it was even more impressive. Once there, the Soul Gem proceeded to merge with the planet's molten heart and brought peace and life to the planet. Ah, how nice. Causing global seismic activity. In one New Avengers comic, an alternative universe version of Bruce Banner ended up in the main Marvel universe. But this time he was a very different Banner from the one we typically know, primarily because he'd been given a lobotomy by his own Avengers, and for that reason he was a sociopath that was extremely dangerous. Of course, things got really interesting, like they always do when he transforms into the Hulk, and he ended up fighting against the regular Hulk. The sheer brute force exerted by their confrontation resulted in seismic activity occurring all over the world, which led Steve Rogers to make the comment that seismologists all over the planet are having a field day right now. More global seismic activity. And to prove that that wasn't just a one-off, here's another fight involving two Hulks resulting in earthquakes all over the planet. This time it was with the dark green version of Banner's Hulk fighting against the Red Hulk. The likes of Vision, who was in New York at the time, were amongst those commenting on the effects of the fight, with others noticing tremors in Chicago and off the eastern seaboard. The most powerful punch of the fight seemed to come from the Green Hulk, when he punched the red version high into the sky, with an accompanying scaraboom sound effect emphasizing just how much force there was behind that punch.
What's wrong?
The pulse rates are spiking again. They're huge.
Yet more global seismic activity. Again with the seismic activity. In one Incredible Hulk comic, after the Hulk had undergone surgery to remove Bruce Banner from his body, he had to face off against two mutated gamma-irradiated boars that Banner had created. When he was beating down on one of the boars, barely even angry at the time, incidentally, somebody in a seismic research station commented that the readings they were getting on the equipment were like nothing they'd ever seen before, and that it was as though a series of bombs were going off in the Earth's mantle. That's a powerful beatdown.
Look like raging fire.
Powering a world-protecting machine. On one occasion, when Exitar the Exterminator was intent on destroying Earth, Dr. Doom built a device that would put a shield around the planet. However, this impressive device needed a power source, and what do you know, the Hulk was up to the task of powering it up using just his brute strength, which was great news, because this protective force was able to resist Exitar's menacing foot stomps until the shield failed due to a crack in the machinery. But to Hulk's credit, that wasn't because of him lacking in the strength department.
Big monster!
Overpowering himself? This one makes no sense at all, but it's so ridiculous that we have to include it here. On one occasion, Hulk's old enemy, the Leader, developed a device that would replicate the same amount of force exerted on it and throw it back at his opponent. In other words, if Hulk used force to attack him, he'd be repelled with the exact same amount of force. And yet the Hulk still overcame it, which basically meant that in that moment he was stronger than himself, or something.
Doesn't sound right.
It's at times like these you have to admit the Hulk's strength makes no sense. Just go with it. Punching through a time storm. Speaking of making no sense, we don't really know how to quantify this particular strength feat, but hey, it sounds damn impressive, so we just had to include it in this list. In one of his own comic books, the Hulk literally punched through a time storm. Yes, a time storm. What is a time storm, you say? Well, a time storm is something that the comic itself described as an inexplicable phenomenon that even Kang the Conqueror's time machine couldn't penetrate. Yeah, that sounds specific enough. Anyways, Hulk's punches split apart the space-time continuum enough for Kang to travel through it. And of course, why not? Not much of that makes much sense to us, but whatever. It was obviously meant to show how strong the Hulk was, and that is good enough for us. Throwing Fin Fang Foom to the moon. Hulk seems to absolutely love throwing things. He does it a lot, and on a number of occasions the objects he's thrown have ended up in orbit. But arguably none of his space tosses have been as impressive as this one. In the aptly titled Hulk vs. Fin Fang Foom comic, Hulk literally picked up the gigantic dragon and threw it straight up to the moon, telling it to just leave, and calling it a stupid dragon as he did so. Lifting the sacred flame of life. In Marvel's comics, in the city of El Dorado, there existed a gigantic piece of deviant architecture and a source of potentially limitless energy called the Sacred Flame of Life. It was, and we quote, built to withstand the power of gods, but it simply could not withstand the strength of the Hulk. With strength bordering on the mythic, in one of his self-titled comics, the Hulk sank his monstrous fingers into the side of the structure's flame pit and lifted it off the ground.
I don't want your diamonds. I want this.
Affecting adamantium. You know how adamantium, the metal famously grafted to Wolverine's skeleton, is supposed to be completely unbreakable and impossible to manipulate? Well, Hulk has something to say about that. The big green guy actually pressed sections of a building made of adamantium with his bare hands, and treating it like most people would treat a wad of waste paper, fashioned it into a crude metal ball-shaped prison for the evil Bellurian villain Ballastar in a Marvel team-up comic. He proceeded to throw the ball into the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, where it sank without a trace. Using Mjolnir. On a couple of occasions in the comics, Hulk has actually used Mjolnir, but because the circumstances aren't always a little hazy, we're only going to include one example here. It came in an Avengers Assemble comic, when Hulk was actually being mind-controlled by Thanos. When Thor attempted to hit the Mad Titan with Mjolnir, Hulk was able to block and deflect the attempt. then used the hammer to whack Thor in the face with it. The fact that Thor was still holding onto it at the time does potentially make it a less impressive feat. But the fact is, Hulk blocked Mjolnir, and indeed used it as a weapon. It's not a feat to be sniffed at. However, it went down. Taking the weight of a star. This one might not look like a particularly impressive feat of strength, but it actually is. In 2013's Infinity Story arc, Corvus Glaive used his blade to hold down the Hulk under the weight of a star. Nope, we don't get how that works either. Although he was effectively held in place, Hulk maintained his position on all fours and didn't completely buckle under the weight. Although the experience also caused him to transform back into Bruce Banner, the fact that he wasn't outright killed and was able to take the weight at all is an incredible feat of strength, and indeed durability.
Nobody has to break anything.
Clearly, you've never made an omelet.
Destroying a gigantic asteroid. In a Marvel Comics Presents comic, a trio of massively powerful alien children accidentally knocked an asteroid twice the size of Earth into a collision course with our planet while they were playing a game. Using some experimental anti-magnetic jet-propelled fortified rocket springs, yeah, we have no idea what those things are either, the Hulk was sent into space to destroy it. Sure enough, the Green Goliath was able to smash that asteroid into tiny bits, allowing the Earth to continue existing in one piece for yet another day. Pushing tectonic plates back together. In one Incredible Hulk comic, after the events of Planet Hulk, the Red King used a weapon to initiate a sequence that was intended to destroy the planet Sakaar by cracking its tectonic plates. To prevent that from happening, the Hulk jumped into the planet's core and unbroke the world by pushing the planet's tectonic plates back together. The planet Sakaar is slightly smaller than Earth, but those plates would still have weighed billions of tons. So that's a massively impressive feat of strength on the part of the big green guy. Holding up a mountain. Arguably, Hulk's most impressive lifting feat came in a Secret Wars comic, and the story of it was later retold in Spider-Man and the Secret Wars. And it was absolutely monumental. When a 150 billion ton mountain was dropped on Hulk and a bunch of other heroes, the big green guy single-handedly held it up. In fact, when She-Hulk, the supposedly strongest of the other characters present, attempted to support just a fraction of the weight, she simply couldn't do it. It was said that there was 2 miles of rock above the heroes at the time, and that's undoubtedly a hell of a lot of rock.
Banner.
Welcome, strongest Avenger.
And that's the end of our video. Did you enjoy it? Which other crazy feats of strength do you remember the Hulk displaying? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to CBR for more great videos just like this one. Bye for now.